What is up, everybody? I'm Kyle Carlson, and this is the Rollback BMX Podcast, the #1 BMX podcast in the universe, according to me. I've officially arrived in Malaga, Spain for the final stop of the Vans BMX Pro Cup. The final leg of my flight was from Zurich to Malaga. I randomly ended up sitting next to BMX media mogul and all-around great guy, Mr. Justin Kosman, on that flight. We had a great conversation on the flight, and it only made sense to officially have him on the podcast. For those who don't know Justin Kosman, he's been one of the most active photographers/videographer guys in the BMX game for the past 15 years. He recently produced the Vans Illustrated full-length video and continues to run pretty much all BMX video releases through Vans. We talk about Justin's roots in BMX, how he got into filming and shooting photos, his background in BMX racing, and a whole bunch of other stuff that I found interesting, and hopefully you will too. Sit back, listen up, prepare to get a whole lot smarter. This is the Rollback BMX Podcast with Justin Kosman. We are here in Malaga, Spain. How do you pronounce it?
Malaga.
I know there's like an accent on one of, I think the first A.
Malaga?
I don't even really know, man. I'm here with the ever so handsome Justin Kosman. We're both off about 20 plus hours of travel. It's early morning at home. It's evening here. And I think we're both pretty goddamn fried. How you doing, Justin?
I'm pretty fried. I got on that last flight. Barely made it. Found out I was sitting next to you, and we kind of had a podcast on the way here from Zurich.
Yeah, to a bunch of native Spanish speakers who don't understand what we're saying. Heard some real good industry drama.
I hope they can understand what we were saying. God,
yeah,
that would have been bad.
I feel bad afterwards. Like I just kind of assume you don't understand. Then it's like, oh wait, no, Americans are the dumb ones that don't speak other languages.
Right? Yeah. Hopefully there was no TMZ Zurich there recording us.
Which would also kind of inflate our egos because it would be like, you guys are important enough for the bullshit you're saying to matter.
Yeah.
So what do you call yourself? What do you do for a living? I mean, if somebody asks you what you do for a living and you're not trying to get rid of them, like, you know what I'm saying? We're usually like, what do you do for a living? My dad would always tell him he's a bus driver because for the longest time he flew the Airbus. You know?
Yeah,
so it's
I get it,
like,
yeah. Like when your Uber driver asks what you want to do and you just want to sleep on the way to the airport, I'm like, oh yeah, I just do like marketing stuff.
Yeah.
And then like, you know.
This is Southern California. I do the same thing everybody that lives in Southern California does.
Yeah. Well, to answer your question, I do a lot of things. I produce a lot of brand commercials. Branded content is, I guess, what a lot of people would call it. Shoot photos. I film things, tell stories about people, tell stories about products. And mostly dealing with athletes, specifically people that ride shit on two wheels. So BMX, mountain bike, moto, and those are kind of my specialties. Mostly non-motorized things, but I still do quite a bit with motocross, off-road dirt bikes, that kind of stuff.
So you do all this crazy nonsense, but your roots are specifically in BMX for the most part.
Yeah, I grew up.
So are you from? Is it Iowa?
I'm from Illinois. But only about 30 minutes away from Iowa. My parents are both from Iowa. They grew up in Iowa and then moved to Geneseo, Illinois, which is...
Never heard of it.
Yeah, it's probably a place that people have... If you've driven across country and gone the northern route, you probably got gas in my hometown, and that was about it.
What's the northern route? Like if I go through like Chicago and stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah, I have done that, so I guess I probably have been there.
Yeah, for the most part, you either pulled over to get gas or got pulled over there and busted for drugs. We had a big K9 unit there, and that route was like a big drug trafficking route, and so they'd pull over sketchy vehicles, and I'd see drug busts there, like on the highway all the time.
Why is there so many drugs going through this beautiful little town?
Just going east to west and west to east,
somewhere between Columbia and Chicago. So you grew up on the Illinois side of things.
Yeah, real small town. It was like a town of like 5,000 people.
How far is that from Chicago?
So it was 2.5 hours west.
So you weren't exactly spending a ton of time in Chicago. It's just far. What's the closest city that you'd hang out in that was like a real city?
Like Moline, Illinois.
Okay.
They have there's a big golf tournament there, John Deere Classic. There's a BMX track in Moline, Illinois. Rampage was in Davenport, which was only about 45 minutes away, but it was also over the river on the Iowa side. And that area is called the Quad Cities. So it's Moline, Rock Island, Bettendorf, and Davenport. And it's just like one big metropolis area. 2 are on the Illinois side of the river, 2 on the Iowa side of the river. And it's just like all the little farm towns around there. That was sort of the place you drive to go to the mall or like buy shoes, basically anything.
Is it cool, or is it exactly what I'm thinking it is?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of exactly what you're thinking is. It's like Midwest, blue collar. John Deere is based there, so a lot of people work for John Deere.
Okay.
A lot of big engineering firms. A lot of people that are into engineering. A lot of technology stuff based off of farming is kind of located around there. A lot of my friends, the ones that did make it out of that town, they work at John Deere. They employed a lot of people. Yeah.
Are they kind of just like designing badass tractors and shit?
Yeah, badass tractors and, ways to track your tractor through GPS. If you have like, several hundred acres of farmland and you got to figure out where your tractor's at, or your combine.
Do they have like Tesla autopilot now? Like you can just make it go drive itself?
No, I don't think it drives itself, but the insides of those are like Cadillac Escalades. They're pretty nice.
I'll bet. Being 2018 and technology being so fast forwarded in the past 10 years or so, like I can't even begin to imagine old tractors versus a current tractor. But at the same time, I guess it does the same thing. And
they're like $1 million tractors,
Yeah.
Tractors and combines, and yeah, they're badass, and they have to.
You made it when you bought $1 million tractor.
Yeah, I have friends, families that are still buying land out there, which is insane, just to keep farming it, and this is.
What do they primarily farm out there?
A lot of it, a lot of it's corn.
Great band.
Some of that's for feed for cattle.
Yeah.
A lot of it is sort of for ethanol now too, because you can make ethanol out of corn. Knew a lot of hog farmers. Like just kind of everything.
So most of your roots in BMX race?
Yeah, so I was pretty lucky. I grew up racing the BMX track, and it was an NBL track, so we had some pretty big jumps. So.
How'd you get into that in the first place? Was it just one of the things to do around there?
No, so my best, just like my buddy in like 5th grade took guitar lessons from this guy, and he gave Ryan this BMX Plus magazine. He brought it to school, and we just freaked out looking at these bikes that had mags and crazy colors. And
what year is this? Is this mid 90s, early 90s?
Yeah, this is early 90s.
How old are you now?
I'm 37 now.
Damn, that sucks, man.
Yeah, I feel like I'm 17, but I'm really 37. It's great. So I had kind of seen BMX before that, and it's kind of a funny story. So it would be more like 6th, 7th grade is when we started to really get into BMX bikes. But a couple years before that, I had a babysitter who was really into skateboarding. And he would take us to like the first Rampage skate park when he had to babysit us, so he could just skateboard, and we would just sit there and watch dudes skateboard. But, Rick Malterno and Kurt Schmidt were riding there, and I didn't know who the hell they were. I was just like a little kid laying on the carpet, getting fleas. And I saw these guys that had raw bikes.
That's one of those things for people who don't know, especially in that era. That's actually kind of a hotbed.
Yeah,
like, growing up there. Around those guys in that time frame is pretty cool in BMX history.
Yeah, it totally was. And it was these like guys that had mullets that had bikes with no paint on them, and I was just like, who are these guys? And they were like doing 360s in the box jump, and I was kind of more into skateboarding at that time, and that was more like 1990, 91, and I got into maybe like 89. I can't remember the years of that bowling alley Rampage, but I was so lucky just to have all that stuff going on around me, and for my parents to really not give a shit that my babysitter was taking us to a place that was just like blasting Slayer and Pantera for like hours.
And the man in charge of you is doing an activity where you can get pretty wrecked.
Right.
And all of a sudden you're just there.
Yeah.
But.
And so eventually he actually convinced my dad. He's like, yeah, we should build Justin and Jeff a ramp in the garage so they can, because they really like skateboarding. He was really the one that liked skateboarding. He just wanted to skate when he was like babysitting us.
No, that's awesome.
So
he's a smart guy.
Yeah, he was really smart. So we skated in the garage, and eventually took our bikes on it. And then when the magazine showed up with my friend Ryan, it was just, we were like, oh my God, we got to do this. These guys are they're jumping and stuff. And we had some jumps in our town that some older kids built. And
this is all before going to the racetrack?
Yeah, this was all before going to the racetrack. And then the racetrack is kind of just where it all happened. That was so much fun racing in the early 90s, like just dirt turns and jumps with lips, and God, you just do whatever you wanted.
So were you racing and riding dirt jumps and skate parks and stuff at the same time? Or you kind of
Yeah, all the same time. So in the winter we would ride Rampage all the time, because
that makes sense.
It was
what you had.
It was like snow drifts, and so we just had our BMX race bikes at Rampage, and maybe you'd throw like a peg on it and learn feebles or something, but jumping the box jumps, jumping the spine, trying to air stuff out, and you just yeah, it was cool because you'd see guys like Rick and Chris Hallman and Jeremy Verhulst riding, and you just like, oh, I want to learn no-footed seat grabs. And,
Did you ever have front brakes and stuff? Were you ever like a part of that school? Or
I did. Eventually, I did have like a second bike. So I had my race bike, and then I had like a freestyle bike, and I had pegs and a bash guard and a gyro. And I did try front brakes. And I didn't really like them, but those guys were all about front brakes, and I was like I really liked riding their bikes, but I could never get my front brakes to work like them. So
didn't Kurt Schmidt ride like a coaster brake for a while?
Oh yeah. All those guys had Sun Tour coaster brakes, and they had a lot of slack. Oh my God, watching those guys ride backwards, like seeing them do that stuff back then, like a lot of that guys are doing it now.
A lot of that is still some of the best style of that riding ever done.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Lucky and Kurt Schmidt, guys jumping the street spine backwards, like jumping at fakie.
Yeah.
Like at the time, it was just so insane, and like now you see Pat Casey doing it, and it's like cutting edge. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I loved watching like at a feast event last year. Clint Miller rode the mini ramp, and people were like freaking out when he was riding, and I'm like, that's awesome because Clint was doing all this shit in probably 89. You know what I mean? Like toothpick to half bar spin, and he goes up and does toothpick with his bars backwards, the half bar spin, so his bars are straight. People are freaking out, and it's awesome. Yeah. But it's just like, oh man, they've just never seen it, or it's just so uncommon. Like it's.
So I definitely rode with Clint Miller in the early 90s.
That's awesome.
Because Illinois and Iowa had different days off of school. So it was like a holiday. I would have the Friday off, and Illinois would have the Monday off. So when I didn't have school on Monday, my parents would or my mom would go drop me off at Rampage, and Rampage wouldn't be open because it was in Iowa. And I'd be riding there with dudes I didn't even know at the time, like Chris Hallman and, guys like on the standard, guys that rode like standard front brake shit like Clint Miller. And I remember seeing Clint Miller ride the mini ramp. This is a guy that had an accent, Australian guy. Yeah. He had like a standard shorty probably at the time. And it's just like looking back, all this stuff that was going around me, and I had no clue about it.
It kind of makes it that much better, I think, because you're taking it with like a more free approach, as opposed to conforming or trying to act a certain way. You can kind of really form yourself around that,
Yeah, it was cool. I at Rampage contest, like Taj would be there, Joe Rich would be there, and it was just like. Seeing those guys ride in that really small skate park, and like Jim Reinstra, like it was just such a cool place to be at that age, and like not have any supervision. And like I personally didn't get into like any sketchy shit. I didn't party when I was young, but it was so cool to see guys that age just like being super passionate about something that was so awesome at the time. And kind of like, I guess you could call it underground, because it wasn't it wasn't like the X Games were around then,
Yeah, nobody was making a ton of money doing what they're doing. They just happened to be really good and happened to love it.
Yeah.
So how did you eventually, what was next? You got into racing, you're riding this. How far did you get in racing? Did you race at a pro level?
I did, yeah. I turned a pro like when I went to college, and that was mainly because I could race pro at the Rockford track and make more than my money back. Like when I was in college, like I didn't really have any money. I had a scholarship which was cool, but I definitely had to like still work. And so I could pay like a $15 entry fee and then make like $100.
That's awesome.
I would never win, but I'd go like drive an hour, go make like, $100 and then come back to school on a Sunday. And that would, be enough to kind of get by with the other jobs I had on campus and things like that. But I was, I never did really well at nationals at the expert level.
Did you ever have desire to, or was it kind of just?
I think I totally did. And I raced some races in Wisconsin, like that were pro open races, and I was like, I raced like Matt Polkamp and like Todd Lyons and a lot of guys, and I just got fucking annihilated by them. And I was real small, and I never clipped in, and I wasn't super serious about it. But like I was really strong, and I was really athletic because I was also a swimmer. Like I swam in college too. And so I was like extremely fit and quick, but like I didn't have any kind of power at all.
Yeah. You should have done steroids.
I mean, I'm sure a lot of those guys were juiced to the gills, and had I known about it, I would have totally been into it.
It's like, oh, hey man, do you want to be better and not have to work any harder? Absolutely.
Yeah, but it's kind of, you look back on those things and you're like, oh man, I'm really glad that I wasn't. It's a fucked up thing to say, but it's like, I'm really glad I wasn't good at it at that point or any better, because I probably would want to take it to the next level. And I really like what I do now, and I really like the path that's kind of happened to me, and so I wouldn't trade that for anything.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's kind of like it's a gift and a curse to get good at something like that, because then you're not forced to go learn other things or find your workaround to make something affiliated to this, lucrative. Like, you need to figure out your own life.
Yeah. I mean, that's really true.
What did you go to college for?
I went to college for English, so I studied creative writing and journalism.
At what point in all this did you pick up a camera?
Like when I was in junior high. So I bought my first camera with Marlboro miles.
Like cigarettes?
Yeah, like cigarette packs. So
how'd you swing that?
Well, because everybody in my town smoked, and the older kids that would take me BMX like to the trails and stuff, they all smoked cigarettes, and I would just take their Marlboro miles. And we'd like buy stuff out of the catalog, and I saw a camera in there, and I bought a camera through the Marlboro catalog. It was red and white.
Was it really?
Yeah, it was full
awesome.
Marlboro, and I would take it to the races and shoot photos, and I tried to submit photos to the BMX Racing magazine, and we'd shoot photos at Rampage of ourselves and then like other people, and I would really like shooting photos and like filming. Like, there's still a lot of tapes back home, like high 8 tapes that I want to capture, because we did film each other a lot, but for some reason I was really into just shooting photos at the time.
Yeah.
But we probably filmed more back then than we shot photos. But yeah, so when I went to college, I met my school's sports photographer, and he had like all Canon digital stuff, like 400 millimeter L lenses, 300 millimeter.
This was probably right when digital was kind of it's probably kind of a big deal to have all that stuff.
Yeah,
right?
And he was working for Sports Illustrated and ESPN the magazine and a bunch of Division I colleges and shooting pro sports. And looking back, like, he was a super successful photographer. He had a full Nikon digital system because that's what he shot a lot of film on. So when he transitioned to digital, it was full Nikon because he had all the glass. And then when I met him, he was transitioning to Canon. So he had a full Canon digital and a full Nikon digital kit, which was insane. I mean, that was like so much fucking money in the early 2000s. Yeah. So I just, I went up to him at
six figures worth of shit.
Oh yeah, definitely. With all that glass and
especially in that part of the country, you could buy 7 homes for that.
Oh my God. Yeah. I mean, and that guy ended up being my mentor essentially through college when I was, studying English and writing. I thought I wanted to be a magazine writer. That was like my master plan. God, thank God that didn't work out. But so I met him, and he really taught me remote flash photography. We would strobe a lot of big sporting events that were indoors, like basketball games and Arena League football indoors. And so I learned how to, shoot with massive flash systems and hardwired stuff, and set up backboard remotes for basketball games, and really just how to, post. I do a lot of post production on photos, and I really
was that Photoshop back then?
Yeah, it was Photoshop. Okay. Yeah, it was probably version 4 or 5. His name's Steve Woltman. I owe him to. If he wouldn't have been around, I wouldn't have been able to like really have any idea that like this would be a job that you could have. So he worked for a lot of marketing departments for all those sports teams, and I was just like, I grew up skateboarding and riding BMX, and I was just like, I want to do what this guy does, but I want to do this with BMX and skateboarding and motocross. That was like, and a couple of my friends growing up raced motocross, and so I would kind of shoot with them, and he let me borrow cameras all the time. And looking back, I was like, I would never let a fucking random college kid just borrow like a 70-200 and like a Canon 1D. Like, no way. You gotta be kidding me. Yeah. Like, he gave me a lot of opportunities that looking back were like,
hey, random kid, here's basically $13,000. Don't blow it.
I mean, he fast forwarded my career, probably 10 years within 1 year. That's kind of how I look at it, from what he taught me and kind of what he gave me access to.
But I almost feel like most people that do something along the lines of what you do have somebody or a situation like that. Because, I mean, if this took you 10 years, you probably would have started doing something else.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Because it wouldn't have happened quick enough to be as significant. And you're totally right. I mean, all those, like, working with him for 4 years and then getting an internship at Bike Magazine in Southern California they were like going to 4-year colleges within like months. The stuff I learned on the job, which was just incredible, and the people I met. It just kind of one thing led to another.
So did you finish the English degree?
Yeah, I did. Okay. I did. And then my master plan was like, I'm going to move. My best friend and I, my friend Valerie, we were just going to move somewhere after college. Like, if we couldn't find a job the summer after our senior years, we were just going to move somewhere together and like try to find a place and live somewhere cool. And so after that summer was over, I was like, all right, Valerie, we're doing it. We're going to go somewhere. And she's like, I'm going to stay in Wisconsin with this guy I just met.
Fucking women, man. God damn it.
And I was like, okay, well, I guess I'm going to book a ticket to Washington and see what Olympia, Washington's like, and see what Portland's like, and see what Bend, Oregon is like. And
all great places.
And so I was like, yeah, fuck, I'm going to work at a bike shop, and I'm going to be able to ride my BMX bike and my road bike and mountain bike, and like, this is how I'm going to make it happen. And when I was out there, I actually got a call back about an internship I signed up for and kind of forgot about at Bike Magazine, which is a mountain biking magazine, and that was in Dana Point at the time in Southern California. And so
is that under the Transworld
banner?
It is. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Adam Watkins actually manages it. He's the publisher for Ride BMX and Bike Magazine.
Yeah.
And so I was up there looking for a place to live, and they were like, "Yeah, you're like the only person that really has a bicycle background and a writing background. So we can offer you nothing a month.
Yeah.
And if you can get out here in a couple weeks, then we can use you." And so I just flew back home and then packed my car up and drove out there. And I had like $1,200.
How old are you at this time? Early 20s?
I was
mid-20s?
I was 22.
Okay.
Yeah, I was 22, about to turn 23.
Okay.
And thought $1,200 in Southern California was going to last forever. And then I realized, you're going to have to work at a bike shop at night building bikes to even eat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To be able to be poor.
Yeah. To still lose money, right?
Yeah. There you go. So you moved out there. You got a bike shop job. Is that?
Yeah, I worked at Bike Magazine doing like product reviews, and it was funny because
were you working in house then?
Yeah, I was working in house, and so like I couldn't afford to eat out, and so what I would do is I would wait until everybody came back from lunch with their leftovers, and then I would go into the break room and just like eat their leftovers.
That's cool.
and then I would leave and go ride sheep hills, and then I would make it back to work before they'd lock the doors so I could finish my work. So I would like take this like obscenely long lunch break. But that's, going to Sheep Hills is where I met Robbie Miranda, and I ended up living with him for a while after the Bike Magazine thing, after that internship.
How long was that internship?
It was only 3 months, and it was during their photo issue, so I really didn't do a lot of writing, but it was cool because I got to see a lot of like amazing slide photography come in. I learned, that was really, really inspiring to see a lot of that stuff behind the scenes, and see the work that a lot of like was coming in for Powder Ski Magazine and the Mountain Biking Magazine. And I was riding BMX all the time, but I knew a lot about mountain bikes, and I had worked in a bike shop, so I was comfortable around it, and it was cool. We got to take out test bikes and do night rides and stuff, but my head was still like BMX. Like, I'm gonna try and make
overall, it was a good 3-month experience, and afterwards you wanted to stay in Southern California.
Yeah, absolutely. And so when I was at that magazine, I met a guy on the ski side of things, and he was like, "You're a BMX guy, right?" It's like, "Cause I work at ESPN, and they're looking for a BMX researcher to work in TV production. Is that something you'd want to do?" And I was like, "Yeah, it sounds cool." And so that was sort of my next step after that. I became one of the writers and researchers for X Games.
Okay.
And that I started out doing that for moto, freestyle motocross at Winter X Games, which is kind of weird. That is really motorcycles weird. on ice with screws in your tires, and then I moved on to Summer X Games, where I basically got a database of like all the pro riders and like their contact information, because I had to call them and ask them about stories
awkward.
and stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, talk about another 10-year leap forward, where you're like, you have Brian Foster's phone number now, you have Dave Mirra's phone number now, you have all these guys that you have to call and ask about stuff. And then they were flying me to events, and that's when like Ryan Gutler had just gotten on the scene, and he was like, had that baby blue bike that weighed like 19 pounds or something, and had like tie spokes on one side, and like, oh man, it was just such a crazy, Vans Triple Crowns were going on.
So is this 2003?
That was like 2004, 2005. CFBs were going on. So
what happened with the ESPN gig?
I did. So that was like a contract gig, and that was like 3 months at a time. So they kind of gave me a budget to work for 3 months leading up to each event. And that kind of gave me enough money to live in Southern California, barely. But
where were you living at the time?
I was living at Robbie Miranda's house in Huntington Beach.
Okay.
So the cool thing was I could call these guys or meet up with them in Southern California, do my research job, figure out, what was their story, if they're coming back from injuries, are they working on new tricks, just basically create a database and new stories for ESPN TV production.
Any cool stories amongst that from BMX? Did anybody tell you anything cool or lie to you or Totally blow you off?
Okay.
Or?
Well, I do have a kind of a funny story about Colin McKay. I don't know what year it was specifically because I did that job for a couple years. But I remember McKay was like off. He didn't have a bike sponsor at the time, and he had just gotten bumped. He was like an alternate in dirt, and then he qualified like into finals. And I think he ended up getting like fourth or even a bronze at that event. But like he was an alternate that we didn't have any info on for a couple years. And so like when I was at the event, I was like, I need to know like what's your hometown, where are you living, like what are your stats, like what kind of bike you're riding, because that was like they wanted to have his name and then like what his bike sponsor was. Yeah. And I was like, what's your bike? And he had a bike at the time that he didn't want to say. Just because he wasn't sponsored by him at the time. Yeah. And he's like, it's a Vans bike. And I was like, dude, I know it's not a Vans. I know it's not a Vans bike. I'm looking at it. Is it a Fit? Is it this? Is it that? And I didn't know because he just had it, no stickers on it. And it was like flat black. And it's just funny because he was telling me it's a Vans bike. It's a Vans bike. And like Colin and I work together at Vans now. You know, he's like the social media manager for all the BMX channels. And, you know, I do all the video production for the BMX side of things. And it's just like funny that you never think that, you know, 10 years from that point that like we'd be working together.
Yeah, he's looking at you as some random guy that he can tell this to and thinks you're just going to be like, okay, that's what it is.
Yeah. It's funny. And yeah, just, you know, guys that I knew, you know, some guys that I knew were injured that would try to act like they weren't injured, or, you know, some guys didn't want to tell me that they were working on new tricks, which is fine. And that's kind of a weird thing. Like, oh, I'm working on this trick. Tell me all about it. You know, guys wanted to keep it a secret, but
well, and I get that as well, where it's like, if I'm not feeling it, I'm not going to do it. You know, imagine like, all right, if my first 2 runs go perfect, I'm going to do something crazy. And then it's like, my first 2 runs didn't go perfect.
Yeah.
I'm not going to send this fucking 3-flip no-hander. Like,
yeah. And some of those, you know, and I understood that, like coming from riding, like I understand that was a question that they most likely weren't going to want to answer. But, you know, some of the guys like Mira and some of the guys like Kevin Robinson, they did have tricks planned, and they knew that if they talked to me about it, we could build a story behind it, and then they could possibly get more TV time.
Yeah, I was going to say, it seems like a good move. Like, honestly, if you had something, bring it up. If you don't do it, go ahead and disappoint everybody, but get the lead up.
Yeah.
You know? But,
yeah. So that was cool. So they were flying me to all those events, and then I was working in like the TV booths and stuff, like the trailer that has like, you know, 15 screens, all the different cameras. Are you
feeding the announcers information or what?
Yeah, so I'd prepare them like a research documents, and then like, you know, a bunch of note cards on what was going to happen, like a short list of things. And then I was in the booth making sure all the graphics would pop up right, or if like a new trick happened, basically like pull camera 10 for like the highlight reel, you know, or if you need to bounce back to something to like for a replay, use that replay, or, you know, or throw that, you know, use that slow-mo clip, or slow-mo this one.
That sounds stressful.
You know, it was like the first year that I did that gig, it changed from live to tape to actually live. And so a lot of people were really stressed out, and it was cool. Like I definitely learned a lot. It was like a really high stress environment, and I feel like, but you get into the zone where you're just sort of like everything's happening around you, and you're doing the best you can, and it's just all moving, and people are kind of like all on board, and you're just doing it. You're getting stuff right. You're calling replays. You're kind of in this moment that lasts like 2 hours at a time, and it's just like this orchestrated chaos. You got people yelling in your earpiece, you got people yelling in your other earpiece, you got people trying to talk to you in the booth, outside the booth, and you see some wrong graphics. Oh, you've got, you know, so you don't realize like how much you can do in such a stressful environment until it's happening. Yeah. And I think that like really set the bar for me of like, wow, you can really do a lot of stuff. But
kind of a confidence booster.
Yeah, but at the same time, you're like, I don't really like this. I don't want to do this forever. Yeah. You know, this is kind of like this live sports roadshow that goes from Wimbledon to college basketball to X Games. And
but can you imagine being that guy in that job? And I'm sure this happens way more than it should. Who just doesn't have the proper knowledge of BMX or whatever that sport may be. Like if somebody was like, "Man, you did a great job at this. Come do this," and it's like a goddamn like golf event or something like that, and you're like, camera 10, like the fucking alligator in the water in the background, like
yeah. You wonder how they can even make a show without someone like that in those positions.
And it's just, man, you know just as well as I do, if not better, that this industry is full of bullshit hustlers that will talk themselves into this shit and then get in there and you know what I mean? Just like no business, can't show up on time, like, you know, gift and a curse of the industry. But like they're lucky that you fell into that and not, you know.
Well, I mean, anybody could have done
certain baby blue bike rider.
anybody could really do that job, but it was I don't know. It was a weird time because now at the time I had all this cool shit going on around me that right now I would be really interested in, like a lot of, production, like, a lot of, high-end video camera work, a lot of pre-produced features, like a lot of really nice stuff that at the time I really didn't give a shit about because I was like more interested in the story side of things.
Yeah. Which is, arguably the most important.
Yeah.
I mean, if all you have to tell the story is your iPhone, but the story's good, it's going to be sick.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of if you can put all the correct pieces together.
Yeah.
Stick on the timeline for a second here. So you do the ESPN stuff. What's the next move? What was the magazine that you were kind of in charge of?
20.
And that was short-lived, right?
Yeah, was it less than a year?
And that's because you did a really bad job.
A terrible job.
That was BMX and freestyle?
Yeah, it was BMX. So Trans World BMX had shut down, and Kevin McAvoy was the managing editor there.
Great guy.
Yeah, Kevin's awesome. Shout out to Kevin McAvoy. He works at Red Bull now. And
I'll run into him like once every other year randomly, and I'm like, I forget how much I like you.
Yeah,
you're an awesome guy.
I forget how much time we spent together. Me sleeping on his couch and like sleeping at the office and stuff. And so when Transworld and Ride were under the same roof, they consolidated it, and Keith Mulligan went to Ride, and then I think Losi eventually left and started Vital. But anyway, there were some staff members from the Transworld side of things, which was a race and freestyle magazine.
So when that happened, did Transworld just essentially leave race?
Yeah, they didn't do anything with race after that. I think the only thing that they would touch with race was the Nora Cup. They still did the Nora Cup and it presented the race thing. So anyway, it was funny because I was living at Robbie Miranda's house, and we were like in his office, like, on the internet or something. And Robbie got a call from Kevin McAvoy, and Kevin McAvoy was like, "Hey, do you know this guy, Justin Kosman?"
Was it like a half joking, or did he not know he lived with you?
I don't think Kevin knew that I lived with Robbie. And Robbie was like, "Yeah, he's right here. Do you want to talk to him?" And I'm pretty sure Kevin didn't really, he wasn't planning on talking to me right there. He was probably just trying to figure out what my deal was through Robbie. A little vetting process.
That's an awkward one. Like, you want to talk to him? No, not at all. I want to talk to you.
Yeah, so we did a magazine. I think we did like 9 issues.
What was McAvoy's gig there?
He ran the magazine. He was like the managing editor.
Head photographer then, or what?
Yeah, it was really just the two of us. At the time I wanted the title of like creative director or something, but I just wrote and shot photos and like picked out the photos and stuff. And Kevin and I worked on, story ideas together. He'd plan out the issues months in advance. We had a lot of.
Were you trying to do 12 a year?
We were, when we started, we were doing it monthly, but we started, and I think we took 2 months to do the first issue. We had a publisher, H3 Publications, in Valencia.
Were they bankrolling it, or?
Yeah, they were bankrolling it.
Okay.
And I can't thank them enough for giving us that opportunity. I think what went wrong was kind of on their end of things. They couldn't really make it work money wise, and I think since they ran a mountain bike magazine and a road bike magazine, that they were going to be able to get a lot of crossover advertising, and it just didn't happen. And the story is a little bit more complicated than that. But Kevin and I
you were embezzling money.
No, God, I had nothing to do with the money except making very little of it.
Making enough to not live where you were paying to live.
Yeah. But yeah, so we did all these issues, and then we were actually going to do like issue 10, I think. And they pulled the plug. And so we had an entire issue of stuff that like wasn't going to see the light of day. And I was like, fuck, I need to sell this stuff. And so I tried selling a lot of it, and then I was working on an interview with a Red Bull BMX racer, Mike Day, at the time, and so I'd shot with him a bunch, more than I usually would, and he lived up near the magazine, so I had like an unusually large stockpile of stuff of him. And he was bummed that it didn't come out, and he's like, "Hey, do you think Red Bull, would you want to sell some of that to Red Bull?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure," And I remember like I sold a bunch of it to Red Bull, and I was like, "Oh shit, I'm not gonna have to move back to Illinois."
Yeah.
And then after I sold that to them, they were like, "Hey, would you want to shoot Formula One cars in South America, Formula One car racing in South America for 2 weeks?"
It's funny you mentioned that. It's my real passion.
And I was like, "No, not really. I'm going on this like RV trip." And then I hung up, and then I like called them back and was like, "Wait, what's the budget for this?" And they're like, "We just like need someone right away. Like, what's your day rate? Multiply that by like 17 days." And I was just like,
$2,000 by day rate.
I was like, "Oh shit, this is really gonna happen."
You can't not.
And then so yeah, I went to South America and shot.
What part?
I went to Cartagena, Colombia, and then I went to Caracas, Venezuela, which I would eventually go back to years later and shoot with Daniel Dares.
Who's that?
He's this weird kid that does a bunch of tail whips.
He's the guy that won the X Games in 2000.
But it's funny how things come full circle. But anyway, that was sort of like, I was at the point where I was like, fuck. I remember hitting up Keith Mulligan because they were hiring for like a web editor, and that's the job that Fat Tony ended up getting. And I was like, God, like there's no place for me in this industry. And then the Red Bull stuff kind of started happening, and that one kind of project in South America kind of fast forwarded me.
And is that just timing? Like, because you're not the goddamn Formula One
no,
guy.
No,
it's
no,
just
no.
like,
no.
You just did the Mike Day thing, and they're like, this guy exists and knows how to use a camera.
This guy's in Southern California.
Yeah.
Like, let's send him somewhere. And it was really because someone else bailed out, and I was just on their radar at the time because they had just done the buyout with me for that. And right place at the right time. And then when I was on that trip, they were like, would you want to go to Austria and work at our agency for like 2 months? And I was like, yeah, sure, why not? And so I came back from that shoot, and then I flew back out to Austria, and I worked for Zoom Productions, who manages at the time all the Red Bull photo files is what it was called. They managed like their Fischer Ski account and Sunto watches, and God, like the first thing that they did when I got there, they didn't really have anything for me to do, so they just gave me the like login code to their like archive of like 15 years of like action sports photography, and they're like, yeah, go through all this. Pick out the ones that you don't like.
Wow.
And so I went through like 15 years of photography. And
did they give you like guidelines? Was it like
No, it was literally like it was pretty obvious they didn't have anything for me to do at the time.
Yeah.
But they taught me a lot about Photoshop, a lot about post-production, a lot about raw processing, a lot about layers. Like that was incredible. And I had just done a shoot in Hawaii where I had a bunch of awesome, like I thought they were really nice photos, a lot of nice sunsets, a lot of nice dynamic range. And I brought all that stuff there, and I got to work on a bunch of like really a lot of post processing that I normally wouldn't have known how to do or taking the time to do myself. And so, but yeah, going through that many years of digital action sports photography across so many different sports platforms was like, it was just like, kind of, I put it all in my brain, like how people shoot different things in different sports. And it was just like, it was like, I felt like I was becoming a better photographer just by osmosis. And I wasn't really becoming a better photographer, but you're just sort of seeing things that are like aha moments. Like every 20 minutes you'd see a photo and be like, oh my God, how'd they get that? And you're just like, oh, okay. And it was like stuff all over the world that I would have never seen in magazines. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I had keys to that database, and God, yeah, it was like looking back on that was crazy. And I used to call home on the work phone because
nice.
I had like a burner flip phone that I didn't know how to like put minutes on, and then when I was there late one night, I just like tried to dial out. And I was like, oh, I could dial the United States on here. So I call home on the office phone. That's pretty funny.
They're probably okay with it.
Yeah,
It's Red Bull.
Yeah.
They had to book me a flight to South America a year and a half, 2 years ago. And they're trying to fly me out of LA and not San Diego. And I was like, look, you can fly me out of LA. Like, that sucks. I don't want to do it. But if I do, I'm parking my car in the front lot. And it's like, I'm gone like a week and a half. Like, it's going to be like an $800 bill. And they're like,
$800 flight.
Yeah, okay. And I'm like, okay. Like, right on. I could just sit on one layover for like 3 more hours. I'm okay with that. But
oh man.
So
that started probably 12 years of working for Red Bull Photography, Red Bull Photo Files, doing a lot of different stuff, a lot of cool BMX projects, but a lot of cool music projects, a lot of motorsports, a lot of like brand building events, a lot of New Year's Eve ESPN projects. And that was sort of like, yeah, that was incredible.
Yeah, that's one thing I've always admired about you and your work ethic and whatnot is you've always inserted yourself in a diverse amount of things. And I don't know if it's because I didn't move to Southern California early enough and I was just kind of stuck in BMX for a long time, but I still haven't ventured out a whole lot. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You've always, since like day one, it seems like I've been across the board.
Yeah, I don't think that was like strategic at all.
Conscious decision. It's
I think
just the way
it was just
out.
like, oh, would you want to try this? And I think it was really just because there was sort of like a transition of like sports photographers at that time in BMX. Like Scott Papiro was kind of like not shooting as much, and it was like that film to digital transition. And I had a digital camera, and then that Red Bull gig in South America let me buy like a 1DS, like a full frame.
So all of a sudden you have the dopest
I
camera.
had like a dope camera at the time, and I had strobes, and I knew how to use them, and I was available, and I didn't live in like a ski town or something, so I was just like the lowest hanging fruit for someone they could call. And the stuff that I wasn't doing was like not like I could just shoot stuff really fast because I was used to shooting BMX. You know what I mean? And so when we were in, remember I had to shoot Slash from Guns N' Roses at like a thing in Austin, Texas, and I had basically like 3 shots, and was just like, we got it done and we moved on, and it wasn't stressful. It was cool, I guess, but I was just able to get stuff done. And all that photography was being distributed to magazines and newspapers. So they needed so much of it, because at the time that was their marketing plan. It's like we shoot a bunch of photography, we give it away for free, and we're gonna get pages
Coverage,
in magazines.
Yeah.
And guess what? That dried up.
No.
Yeah.
No, this is sustainable. This will last forever. So I guess kind of along those same lines, how did you kind of start hitting video really hard? Because I mean, it seemed like you were Mr. Photography guy, and all of a sudden you're doing like the first full length BMX video with Vans.
Yeah.
Like you transitioned to video. It seemed, I know you've always dabbled in it, but it seemed like hit it real hard, and your skills transferred over. I'm sure you see sometimes like some guys know how to shoot photos and it transfers over to where they're great at video, and some guys somehow it just doesn't transfer over, and it's like,
yeah,
it seemed to go well for you. How did that happen?
I just I bought
HVX.
I guess I actually bought a TRV 900.
Nice.
and we were on a DC Shoes road trip through the Southwest, and a bunch of my stuff got stolen. We were at a skate park, and I was doing a group photo, and this kid just ran away with one of the 3 bags I had laying out. One bag had all my photo gear and my laptop. Another bag had like a bunch of batteries in it, and the other bag had the TRV 900, bunch of mini DV tapes. And he took the bag that was like the Atiba bag, so it was like the most recognizable filmer bag. The other ones were like weird Tenba bags. So he took the one that he recognized and actually had the cheapest shit in it. But I turned it into insurance, and got a lot of money for that. And then I bought that HVX 200, and so I brought that on a lot of photo shoots that I had. I'd set up tripod. Just shoot it at 60 frames, slow-mo.
Yeah.
And because I remember I was on a shoot with, I was shooting photos on a Brian Purdy project, and he had the HVX 200, and I was just like, all the slow motion stuff was just so beautiful.
That was kind of the first time that was something that a consumer could have.
Yeah. It was within reach. It was like maybe like $8,000 at the time. It had those really expensive P2 cards.
Well, I remember there was a weird time when I was maybe 19 or 20, and I literally got a loan to buy an HVX, because it was kind of like you had one, Will Stroud had one, and then Dave Jacobs had one, and I had one, to where like just by having it, I could get gigs, help with Levi's stuff, and it was kind of like if I didn't have that, it was kind of a big deal. Like, oh no, it's HD. HD's new. You need this camera. The slow motion's good. Like, so I think just having that, at least for a very brief period, was like, is he good? It doesn't matter. He has the HVX.
Yeah, totally wasn't good. But like when you have access to all those riders at the time, like the value is just being able to go places with all those guys. And so I was like, if I could have another camera rolling, I could just have more stuff. And I was just so into slow-mo. I still am into slow-mo. Like I mainly shoot 240 frames a second on all my Sony stuff. Like I love slow-mo. I'll admit it. But that's just how
when you shoot 240, what shutter are you usually at?
It depends what I'm doing. If it's more lifestyle stuff, I'll shoot shutter of like 1/250th of a second. If I want a little bit of want it to look a little bit more natural. But if I'm shooting action, at least 1/500th and sometimes 1,000.
Wow. Okay.
Just depending on how like smooth and video-y you want it to be. It just depends on what you're doing, and what you're going to do with it.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's. Yeah.
Anyways, that was totally off topic. I was genuinely curious.
But yeah, I mean, people were asking, it was when video was coming out, and people were, oh, could you get a video clip of that too? And so I was like, yeah, I can do that. And it would just be a tripod, and we get the clip, and that's just how it all started. and yeah, I really didn't know how to use the camera, but I knew how to run the camera, and I knew if I could get the clips, I could kind of like reverse engineer it and figure it out. And
yeah,
this is kind of off topic, but I wrote about this in like a Red Bull interview I had earlier this year. Like, I remember seeing a Richard Marx music video when I was growing up, and it was like one of the first music videos I ever saw because I was at my cousin's house and they actually had MTV because we didn't have cable, and it was such a weird music video, but I was like so intrigued by it because it was like this weird mysterious story. Richard Marx, he had this crazy hair and this mullet, and it was like about a small town murder, and it was like a mini movie. And I just, for some reason, I would just always think about that weird thing. It was never like, oh, I want to try and shoot that, but I just like, it just stuck in my memory.
Of a short-term storytelling experience.
Like a short film.
Do you remember the music video for Paranoid Android by Radiohead?
Oh my God,
it was
I know.
all animated. It was like a little short story cartoon thing.
Yeah.
And it always stuck out to me, and it was kind of like, I mean, maybe just because it was like, oh my God, music videos are so popular, and this is something other than the band playing in a cool location, you know?
Yeah, man, I would, if I could pick another time in history to grow up, it would be to be like a DP or a creative director in the 80s and 90s shooting music videos. That would be so much
penetration?
fun. Director of photography.
Oh,
yeah.
Weird. Yeah, okay. Anyways, so.
But yeah, that just, you kind of had a license to do whatever you wanted back then. And man, it was
a lot of fun.
You know, when we were in Guadalajara, it reminded me, and that's why I'm thinking about it, because when we were in Guadalajara eating at that shitty Chili's, they had all that, it was like VH1 80s.
Yeah,
and so
it was great.
I was like watching all those old music videos, just remembering all of them. And,
good old days, man. It's just, it's moved down to Mexico, and that's where it all lives now.
Oh, man.
Fast forward a little bit here. You did the full-length Vans project.
Yeah, and I was shooting photos. I was doing like web commercials for them at the time for video, and Jerry had an opportunity to do a full-length video within pretty much a year in conjunction
I
with
remember growing up, man, this is always a little bit of an outsider, so a lot of it could have been bullshit, but I just remember there always being like rumors like, oh, Vans is going to do a full length just as long, like fucking early 2000s.
Yeah.
And it didn't eventually, what year did that come out? Was that 15?
Yeah, it was like 15. Yeah.
Like, so is this finally the first time there was actually a green light to do it?
Yeah, because skateboarding had taken, I think, 5 years and some change to finish theirs.
Van Skates Propeller, was that their first full length?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's crazy to have such an iconic brand that's been in these sports for so long. And like, man, most of these brands put out a goddamn video before they make a product.
Yeah, but you know, I mean, a lot of the guys on those teams were filming for a lot of their board films.
Yeah.
And so and I understand that's the problem that we had. It was trying to get guys all on the same page because everybody was on different projects, and towards the end, it kind of became just a scramble to get other filmers together to work with guys because we just, you know, we were trying to get it done and do it.
You do that, or you don't have footage
could.
of this guy.
Yeah, seriously. So after the DVD,
looking back on that experience, any big takeaways?
Oh yeah, I mean that was a lot of fun. It was really stressful.
It was one of the more.
What did you think about it? Because it's like, I shot, you know, a lot of it, and I edited it, and then you're so close to the project, you kind of just only look at it in terms of like what it could have been.
It was different. I enjoyed it. So I'm going to go ahead and say bad things just because that's kind of the type of person I am. But I did enjoy it as a whole. I thought it was a really nice visual piece. I thoroughly enjoyed that. I enjoyed it being something a little bit different. My biggest takeaway was I wanted a bit more out of the riders. I just wanted them to be like, this is fucking Vans. Like, I'm going to have a year to film. They have money behind it. You know, a lot of it seemed like, oh, it looks like you got to film with this guy 3 days. Oh, it looks like you got one trip with this guy.
Yeah.
You know, where it's like, I wish it could have been like, no, like you literally went on 4 trips just for him to get clips, and he was on 3 other trips. Or, you know what I mean? Like, that was my only real takeaway. I just felt like there were a handful of guys on there that like, oh, okay, Scotty clearly went to Arizona. Scotty went to Arizona and South America because all his clips are Arizona and South America. You know, where it's like, I wish Scotty would have been 40 places.
Yeah, I wish I would have been 40 places with Scotty.
Yeah, I totally get that.
It was like,
I'm guessing anything I would say here is something you would agree with. Yeah. And a lot of it just isn't feasible. But.
Yeah, the time, you know, when Jerry gave us the opportunity to do it, I didn't want to say no, and I knew that I knew that like half the guys on the team would be down. Like if we were like, we're going to do this. But you know, kind of partway through the video, there was a point where we like the budget was kind of frozen. And just the way stuff works at some of those bigger companies, they have to like scale back during different quarters. And that's just, you know, marketing is kind of the place where a lot of that money gets allocated if there's a lot of it, and then kind of sucked out of it. So they, you know, for whatever reason, I mean, I could say something like they want their quarterly earnings to appear better, but I don't know for sure. But that's just, I've worked with enough brands to know that there's just marketing is the division that expands and contracts the most. And for a couple months during the summer of all times, like we didn't go on any trips and we weren't driving around Southern California filming. Yeah. And so we kind of lost out on a couple months. And you know, honestly,
when it's like a 1 year project, you lose out in a couple of months.
Yeah,
that's
a couple months in the summer in Southern California, and
all of a sudden a fifth is gone.
Yeah, and we didn't know if it was gonna, like, if we were even gonna finish it or what was gonna happen with the footage. Like I was trying to figure out ways to put it out during that time, and like I was doing other stuff for Vans at the time. It wasn't like they didn't have any money. We were still doing normal stuff. It's just like that project was kind of like an extra one, and you know, looking at the resources we had and all the constraints that we had, like I think it came out really well. But you know, like absolutely. But man, I feel like a project like that is almost like 2 year minimum. Like if we're gonna do one again, like I would want to do it. Like I would want to do a 2 year minimum. And a lot of that stuff isn't under my control or my say. And when you have budgets that go year by year, it's like, I understand you can't say like, ahead. Oh, we're doing this for 2 years.
You know, and another thing as well is I think it would be great on a project like that with such a big team. You almost need to pick, these are the guys we're going to focus on. Maybe these 5 guys get full parts and there's 2 split parts or something. And I also think it would be beneficial to have probably 3 full-time video guys shooting. Oh, obviously you're in charge. You handpick these guys. You're good with their footage to come in and whatnot. But I mean, just like the Vans team's so huge, it either needs to be less guys, more filmers, or in a perfect world, a combination of both.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah. I mean, sure. Like more time and more filmers. And that's like, and you know, when I talk about a lot of the stuff that I'm trying to do now, like when we shoot a lot of commercials or like 30-second, you know, TV spots, like a lot of the stuff that we do it's not that hard to do, but when you only have like a couple hours to do it at a permitted location, it becomes really hard to do. And that scales up the same. You know, when you only have a year to do what's like 13 video parts. Yeah. That's a lot. Everybody rides in different ways. And, you know, like some guys you don't really want to bring on trips with other guys because they ride in the same way, and you don't want to get to a spot and just have like a Mexican standoff where no one wants to ride anything because they both want to do the same thing.
5 guys want to do the wire at the table, and it's like,
yeah, I mean, and you want to create an opportunity for all those guys to do the best that they can.
Well, and it's that balance as well where it's like, but you don't want them to be so different that they have to ride different spots. Yeah. You know, you don't want to bring, let's just say, Gary Young to just like a flat ledge spot, you know? And
yeah,
it's like
100%.
Granted, Gary could absolutely kill a flat ledge spot. Not saying that, but it's just a matter of like, that's not his forte. Yeah. Whereas you take a guy like Ricani to a flat ledge spot and it's like some magic's going to happen.
Totally. And that's, man, it's, you know, like that's a good point. You take, both those guys are great to work with. But like when you're planning out trips, it's just like, unless you're doing like a shop stop, like those guys might not be on the same trip together. And I don't mean that. I don't make those decisions at all, but you're like, in terms of productivity, you want to create the best environment for those guys to do their best work that they want to do. And it's that kind of means that Gary and Sean like might not be on the same trip.
And that's just a testament to how big and diverse the Vans team is as well. Where if it was a smaller company or, you know, a lot of companies would just kind of pick the team accordingly. Let's pick a team of riders that we can always have in one group and whatnot. But Vans, it just happens to be down to support so many goddamn guys, you know? Yeah. Which is awesome, but I definitely see it being a gift and a curse when you're this dude who's kind of like, all the content that comes out of this has to go through my hands. Like, you know, there's...
Yeah, and it's like we did a team trip in Arizona once, and it was like, I think it was like 10 or 11 guys, and it was like Luke Parslow was on the trip, and Nasty, and Josh Harrington, and it was the year... It was like we went to that BMX race too, and they all raced out there. And that was a cool trip, but I'll tell you what's not cool is when you're filming one guy in a skate park and you turn around and you see 8 guys just sitting there, like really bored. Yeah. And you're like, even though you have another filmer, you're looking at guys that like don't want to ride this stuff.
Yeah,
and it's like,
and that's fair. It's like,
and
okay,
it's fair.
you're a dirt dog. You want to go ride some big dirt jumps. And
or you're a street guy and you don't want to film on some ledges at a skate park.
Yeah.
And so like you gotta like respect that these guys are so far down the rabbit hole at what they do. They're such niche technicians and experts and artists at this shit.
Yeah.
That it's like it's really hard to plan stuff out, I think, because you just always think of like what's the best thing that we could offer this guy.
Yeah.
And sometimes that means like a trip with him and one other guy. You know what I mean?
Or it means leaving him home.
Yeah.
You know, it's I'm not going to waste your time. I'm not going to spend money to have you somewhere you don't even want to be.
Yeah.
Like, whereas I could go meet you at your spot and we could film for a day at home and it would be far more valuable.
Yeah.
You know, it's finding that balance. Fast forwarding to today, it seemed like the Path to Pro Cup series that you created quite a bit of buzz. So there was an episode for each stop of the Pro Cup that kind of highlighted the guys at home and then while they're at the event and whatnot. How did that come about? And was this all kind of your brainchild?
No, not really. The guys at Off the Wall TV, which is like Vans' in-house, it's like their in-house production company and in-house like content creation like division. They were just like kind of looking at a lot of stuff that the different sports were doing and trying to figure out ways to take like a different look at something instead of doing just like an event recap highlight reel, which we still do. Like they were just like, you know, do you want to do something that's more like a behind the scenes piece or focuses on like an interesting person? And I was like, yeah, because that's the stuff I do for other brand commercials. And I like doing this. I like, you know, storytelling pieces. I like, you know, stuff that's narrated with voiceover. And you know, you look at that start list for the Vans Pro Cup, and you got to think that like all those, you know, 30 guys each have their own different story going on in their head.
Yeah.
And that's pretty cool. You know, like we all experience it in such different ways. And an event recap is cool because you can see all the tricks that they did.
But event recap's necessary.
Yeah, it's totally necessary.
You need to put the icing on the cake, you know, like it shouldn't be the only thing if you have the option of doing it, but like when people think event, the first thing they want to see is like, what's the craziest shit that happened?
Yeah.
Then it's like, nobody's going to think they want this. Then you give it to them and it's like, okay, I just watched this for 10 minutes.
Yeah. And I mean, it is crazy editing a piece where you're like, yeah, this is like 6, 7, 8 minutes. And, I love all the people that are on this tour and they're so interesting and they've had such different paths to end up at the same place. And so the cool thing for me was like picking people that, I'd worked with before and I knew had really interesting stories and that were really articulate and honestly really, really passionate about what they do. And they're really talented people that would be really talented doing anything else in life in this world for a job. Like I'm really excited, you know, BMX doesn't last forever and I'm really excited to see what a lot of these people do later in life because if they're half as good at whatever they go to next as they are on a bike, it's going to be pretty awesome.
I think a lot of it's applying yourself. You have to give enough of a fuck to apply yourself.
Yeah.
Like if these guys can take that creativity and even a portion of the passion into anything else, they're going to be damn good at it.
Yeah. So,
but that's a lot easier said than done.
Yeah, it's easier said than done too. And I think, you know, we're all pretty lucky to have found something that we're passionate about because we all know people that work jobs that they aren't passionate about and we can't really see ourselves in that position. So the Path to Pro Cup, we started with Jason Watts in Australia, and then the next one we did was with Larry Edgar in Huntington Beach, and that kind of focused more on like the high air thing between him and Chris James.
Yeah, I feel like I filmed a lot of that uncredited.
You did donate one clip. I'll call it a donation.
You're welcome, VF Corp.
Yeah. That was a key part showing that crash.
Yeah, that was probably the most valuable clip in there.
It certainly was.
You're very welcome. Peraza
was the next one.
The rattlesnake was sick.
Yeah. Oh my God, the rattlesnake. That
looked like a bad motherfucker. Like
that was a pregnant rattlesnake. So we were going.
So somebody was fucking that rattlesnake.
a while ago. We had just shot. We were going back to his house, and then we saw that rattlesnake. We actually ran into his brother, who was passing us, and they were taking pictures of the rattlesnake. And we took pictures of the rattlesnake. I was like, dude, I need to go get a different lens. We go back to your house. We come back. Someone had fucking ran over the rattlesnake and like 12 eggs had like shot out.
Man, that sucks.
And the rattlesnake was like, this is so sad, man. Like the rattlesnake is in 2 pieces, still like coiled up around all its eggs. And it's like jumping up trying to bite the cars that it's like that the cars that are like driving over the top of it. Like it was like
because everybody knew it was there. Was somebody an asshole or was it just like a
these like neighborhood kids had like ran it over once.
Oh man.
And then everybody else, like when I say the next people that were running it over, like they were driving over the top of it, so it was in the center. So they weren't like crushing it, but the snake was like jumping up trying to bite the car. I mean, it's just a snake. It doesn't know it's like it's trying to protect itself.
No, man, that's
dude, it was so sad, and that's a weird thing to talk about, but like it was me.
Never thought I'd feel bad about a rattlesnake.
Yeah, it was like me and Victor and Kevin and Itzel, and we were all just like, it was like a really fucking sad moment, man. But like, I don't know.
That seems like a real mood flip. Like, oh my God, a crazy big rattlesnake. Let's take photos.
Yeah.
To like, now all of a sudden, it's a completely different emotion.
It's a pregnant rattlesnake fighting for its life and to protect like these eggs that are now in the middle of the street that have no chance of
they're all
hatching.
Dead. They're all fucking dead. Yeah. Like,
yeah.
And it has no idea. It's almost like the whole put you out of your misery thing. Like the best thing you can do at this point is make sure it's dead quick.
Yeah.
Like,
oh my god,
that sucks, man.
Yeah. What a bummer.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I'm working on one with Angie Marina right now. We filmed a bunch.
So hers
in
is
San
going to
Diego.
be like you guys go and rescue rattlesnakes.
Yeah, rattlesnake rescue. Yeah, exactly. We filmed a bunch at some San Diego skate parks. Some stuff with her in Paris. And then actually got to film a bunch of her making welding, soldering jewelry in her garage, which was pretty awesome.
Yeah.
I have some of it edited. And I
never took you as much of a jewelry guy.
You know what? I took some jewelry making classes in college.
Oh, really?
When I found out I didn't have enough credits to graduate and I didn't have enough money to buy credits at my current college, I had to ride my bike to a junior college and take art classes. And the only art classes they offered that semester were jewelry making.
I thought you were going to say you didn't have money to buy chicks gifts, so you had to learn to make jewelry.
Actually, I traded a stack of books to a guy that ran a Thai restaurant because I heard that you could give him books and he would give you like meal credits.
That's dope.
So I went on a date, like I had like a date set up with this girl, and I went in that day to the Thai restaurant with a stack of like all these like I think like religious philosophy books and like some.
Was he flipping them on the side or something?
Yeah, he I don't know what he was doing, but like he looked. I was like, can I get 2 meals? Can I get 2 entrees and like an appetizer with this? He's like, date? I was like, yeah. He's like, okay, sure. Tonight? And I was like, yeah. And so I remember like Kristen and I went on that date, and he like came over and he's like, you're all good. No, you don't have a bill with us. And like she was like, oh, you must be a baller or something. And I'm like, no, I just saw these books that I couldn't.
Oh, you outed yourself?
Yeah.
Oh, you're an idiot. Like, I own this place.
Yeah.
So what's next for you? Are these Pat the Pro Cut videos gonna keep moving forward next year? Hopefully. I mean, where's your head at as far as the game goes?
I'd like to create some of these with the guys on the street side of things.
Yeah.
Cool to do one with like Dak or Rickany.
Maybe
one of the dirt guys.
There needs to be more shit with Travis Hughes. That kid he's a bad motherfucker, and need to get him out there more. Like out of his shell a little bit. Like
yeah.
You know what I mean? Because Vans backs him and whatnot, and it's like he's a super cool kid. I don't know him incredibly well, but I've always liked him. But he's so goddamn talented. It's like that kid needs to be on the map. He needs to be competing in X Games. All these things that like he needs to kind of get the A-list treatment that he kind of gets.
He's on the edge, man. He's right there.
Yeah.
I mean, you see it too on Instagram on those Wednesday sessions at the Vans skate park in Huntington.
Dude, he's incredible.
The stuff that those guys do is fucking insane.
Yeah.
And so Jerry put him on the team this last year, like with Rickeny and Larry. And so we've gotten to film some things together. And Travis is really funny. He's
a fucking character, man.
he's really funny.
Yeah.
He's like a big kid, and
he's like an actual kid though. What is he? Probably 18, 19 now. Like he's so young, but he's so talented and like.
Yeah, he takes it seriously though. That's pretty cool. Like when we shoot stuff, like he can see he like gets in a mode where he's like, okay, like I'm gonna land some like really heavy shit.
He's one of those kids who I think it's crazy to see how good he is, and I feel like his potential's hardly even been tapped.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
I think you're right because he hasn't. I shouldn't say that he hasn't been tested because he's done some awesome stuff with Odyssey and Sunday.
Well, a lot of the King stuff too. Like
the King stuff is
he's got a truck over that big thing in like the Columbia or something.
Yeah.
Like he's had some crazy shit out there, but
yeah, that's like the next wave of guys. I'm excited to see kind of who are those guys that come up in this next generation of this generation with no magazines.
Yeah. It's a whole different ballgame.
Who's it gonna be?
It's cool now because guys can kind of create themselves, whereas before, if you lived in the wrong place or the guy behind the camera didn't like you could kind of get held down.
Oh, 100%.
You know what I mean? And now it's kind of like everybody has an outlet.
Yeah. Everybody has the opportunity because it's really just in your pocket. It's on your phone. You have access to yourself and your talents. And if you're not bashful about promoting yourself, and that's a hard thing to do.
Yep.
Because I certainly don't do it for my own business. I should, I feel like I should, but God, the stuff, the way that people can like promote themselves is unlimited, and the guys do a great job of it.
I think what ruins it for me is when people that suck promote themselves. When people who are just like nobodies but try to play it off like they're hot shit, like that kind of makes it seem lame. Where it's like, no, like if you're a badass, you can be upfront about it. You got to be honest about it. But when it's like kids just trying to look rich and shit, and I'm like, dude, you suck. I hate you.
Yeah, there's a lot of guys that they're having a conflict of like being humble. The guys they're really humble guys, and and they're just kind of in this transitional phase of like, magazines where you work with people and you do good, cool work and you don't have to do it yourself. And there's like some weird connotations about, promoting yourself now. But I think people do it well. Like you look at Dakota and he does it really well. He doesn't do like, selfies. Oh, here at the spot, check me out.com. Like he's just like, here's me riding. And like every day he's like posting riding and stuff.
Dakota's a crazy one too. Cause it's like, dude, you go hard every day.
Dude, how the hell do you do it? He's in the streets or he's driving.
But you're totally right in the sense of Dakota's the type of guy that like, if I'm trying to think of a proper way to word this so it makes sense, but if Dakota, like, if you had a conversation with him, he'd find a way to tell you he was like, I'm a professional bike rider for a living. But it would be true and it wouldn't be in a douchey way.
Yeah.
Like he's just a real motherfucker,
Yeah,
he's a good dude.
He's like, a real dude in the streets, and he's like committed to it. He's not 1 foot in, 1 foot out. Like he's fully invested in what he does, in the style he does it, and he's very particular about it. And God, yeah, I mean that's why he is where he is today.
Yeah, and he's been like that for a long time, man. He's just such a hardworking guy, and he's the model citizen. Like if a kid is starting to make it in the game or wants to make it in the game, it's like, if you model everything you do after Dakota, you're going to be okay. Yeah,
and good luck trying to fill those shoes.
You're not going to fill those shoes.
You're not going to. But he's like, I don't know if this analogy really is like makes sense for Dakota, but I look at guys like him and I think about like feature length movies, and I'm like, I just want to see Dakota in feature length stuff. But we're living in a world of like open mic night stand up comedy where it's like you've got guys that are really good. Like really good in feature films, but if you only do one of those every couple years, like, are you off the radar?
Yeah.
And these guys that are just like doing open mic night stuff, that some of it, maybe it's funny, maybe it's good, some of it's
like
not.
Fucking like a YouTube celebrity.
Yeah, seriously. And so you sort of have to exist in both worlds now, and I don't know how that works, but
no, it makes sense. It would be like grabbing Tom Cruise and be like, "You're doing open mic tonight." Like, and that's not what I do.
And every night for
yeah.
It's tough in the BMX world.
Quantity versus quality,
trying to find someone who can really support you to do something that you're really passionate about, providing like, putting together like a feature of your work at the highest level that is like cutting edge stuff.
And finding somebody that gets you. Where some guys nail that. Some guys are perfect for the quantity. Like, okay, you can kill it like on steroids every single day over and over and over, whereas some guys it's like what you do is different.
Yeah.
Like I don't know. I think we're saying
finding someone to bankroll that stuff, the big feature length stuff is tough.
I'm not going to do it. I'm not bankrolling that shit. As much as I love it, you know what I mean? How track this return and whatnot. That's the joy of like hopefully brands like Vans that are big and have actually have money like getting behind some of these bigger projects, which is awesome.
Yeah.
Like I understand when these bike companies are so small and struggling in their own ways, you can't be like, I need $100,000 in a couple years.
Yeah.
It's like, well, I got to sell enough bikes to keep the lights on this month,
Yeah.
But, well, Kosman, anything else you want to get off your chest here?
Oh man. I'm just looking forward to this event in Malaga. I mean, this Ruben Ruben Design Skate Park is like literally one of the most insane skate parks that watching these guys ride is just like incredible. And I thought last year was just like mind melting, and these guys are getting to ride it a second time.
Are you into like really crazy ramps? You should check out like the Nitro Circus.
Oh, fuck off.
It's one of the most insane skate parks.
Oh, does it have like a plastic landing with like an airbag under it?
No, it's a concrete skate park now.
The Kevlar one?
About 2 miles from your house.
The Kevlar one? Oh, yeah. Oh, my God. Dude, shit is getting so... I saw it happen in BMX racing in 2008. Shit is going to get so weird for freestyle. That's just what's going to happen. And
meaning Olympic-based.
Yeah, for the Olympics. And, shit is just going to get weird. And, like, people are going to be involved in it. Some people aren't going to be involved in it. But I'll tell you one thing, and I don't want to shit on the Olympics, but it's like nothing was ever in the Olympics and then it got better. It's almost like shit goes to the Olympics to die. And like, I don't know if I'm burning a bridge or not. I don't fucking care, honestly, but like it didn't help snowboarding out. It maybe helped Shaun White out. It maybe helped out a bunch of people in the industry that showed up and took a check to do some stuff behind the scenes. But like, it sure as hell doesn't help the culture of action sports at all to wear a bunch of kooky uniforms and do a bunch of timed stuff with I don't know. I just want to see Jason Watts dressed in a referee uniform. Maybe he's sober, maybe he's not.
He's not.
Throwing flags at people. That's what I want to see. and that's like I don't know. I feel like that's what an event should be like. An event should be like an anti-event. Like a BMX freestyle event should be us making fun of the other events that like all the stick and ball sports. And that's just what I believe. Because, I think freestyle is truly an oxymoron. It's like, it's free. We don't need to judge things like to each his own. And then we like rank all these guys and, make them feel bad that they didn't get first or second place. And I don't know. I just... That's a weird way to end it. Maybe we should rewind and you should cut it before I say that.
No, you still have to tell me who your favorite rider of all time is.
Oh my God.
And it has to be good or else I get to decide for you and you don't want that.
My favorite rider of all time. I would say Brian Foster. And only maybe that's fresh in my memory because I just saw him get inducted into the BMX Hall of Fame. But like for me, he was influential, winning, in pro BMX racing main events and then doing 361 head and tables. Yep. At the same event.
Did he have a crazy speech or something?
He had a really he had a pretty good speech.
I saw like a headline or somebody said something about it, but I didn't hear the speech.
Yeah, I think the headline was like BMX isn't hard, or being a pro BMX rider isn't hard. Not being a pro BMX rider is hard. So, he spent 8 years going to medical school after his BMX career, and I totally get where he's coming from. Trying to reinvent yourself
as an adult man.
Yeah, as an adult after you've tried to avoid a legitimate job for so many years. Yeah. And he's done a great job at that.
Well, he took it to the extreme. It's one thing to like get a job. It's another thing to go to medical school. Yeah, that's hardcore, man. Yeah, I mean, his wife's a doctor, right?
I don't know.
I think
she does something in medicine.
Something that was like legit. She went to school for a long time, and he funded that through riding, and then switched places now. But
but definitely, I'd say BF because I never like, I never saw him not having fun. Yeah, and that's kind of just like the people I like being around now. Like the people that are having fun are the people.
BF kind of embodies everything you just kind of said about the Olympics and whatnot. I remember one of the first times I met BF telling me about how like he got into dirt jumping because he got in trouble for smoking weed or whatever. And it's and then he becomes this iconic dirt jumper because he fails a drug test.
It was like the rumor was that, Brian raced for Schwinn. And so GT paid off USADA to do a drug test at some race where that Brian needed those points to like, lock in his number one fucking plate or something.
They put marijuana in his system.
Oh yeah, right. No, I don't think there was any I don't think marijuana had a hard time getting into Brian's system.
No, I don't think so either.
But yeah, it was just such a crazy time in BMX where all that stuff was happening at the same events. And BF for sure. And like about 100 guys are a close second for sure. But yeah,
BF's always a good answer. If he's not somebody's favorite rider ever, he needs to be up there.
Yeah.
And if he's not up there, you're an idiot. Just like straight up, you're an idiot. You don't get it. You know, BMX is kind of for everybody and you can follow your own path and stuff. But if you can't agree on the Brian Foster part, you can go to hell.
Yeah. I think when you ask that question of who's your favorite BMX rider ever, it's kind of like, what guy could you put in any freestyle environment and he would make it better? Like it's like you put him at any place. I mean, fuck, you could put him on the deck of a vert ramp and he wouldn't have to drop in, and it would be like a great session. Because
I'm so happy you were here.
Yeah.
Just the motivation factor as well. Go, Brian Foster's here. I can't suck.
Yeah.
I just enjoyment, man. If somebody can boost the enjoyment and can for a long period like he has, it's like, man, like if you make this game a better place than it was before you got there, like that's something special. And Brian Foster did that.
Yeah.
And I did the opposite. So
you suck the air out of the room.
Bingo. Hey man.
Bring the average down.
I got big lungs. I got to breathe. All right, man. You good to get to dinner or drinks? Or
McKay just hit me up to grab some food.
Oh, cool. Let him know that I'm going and he can pay for it.
All right, you got it.
All right. Thanks, Justin.
All right.
All right, that does it for this week. Big thank you to Justin Kosman for coming through and giving us a piece of his mind. Follow him on Instagram at Justin Kosman, no space. I'm honestly not sure if he wants people to follow him on Instagram or if he wants to stay behind the scenes, but go ahead and follow him anyway. He's a pretty cool guy. And until next week, just remember, it doesn't count if you don't pull the rollback. See ya.